Kristian Morgan. Welcome to Dirt Church Radio. How are you doing?
I'm good, Matt. I'm good. It's early, but you know what? It's just nice to be chatting to you guys in New Zealand finally.
And I mean, this is a real international affair. Where are you beaming in from?
Actually, I was in London just about 2 days ago, and now I'm in Spain on the east coast of Spain. So everyone knows, I guess, Ibiza. You guys heard of
Yeah,
Ibiza? Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm just, if you were to draw a straight line from Ibiza to the mainland, I'm in a place called Denia. There's some nice mountains out the back. Yeah.
Goodness me, not tempted to pop across to Ibiza.
Oh yeah, I'll take a trip with my girlfriend one day. I haven't been there yet. I've been there before a couple of times, not for partying, just to take in some nice tapas in the old town though. Yeah,
You're probably the only British person ever to go. Yeah, no, I've been to Ibiza, but not for partying.
yeah. I hate to break the mold. Actually, I love to break the mold. Yeah.
Look, I mean, we're not here to talk about deep house, although we probably could if you wanted to. But we're here to talk about your Appalachian Trail feat. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's been a while. It seems like it's just my life now, since 2018, helping set the record. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Have you, having had some time away and have some time to sort of or maybe not decompress, what's it like undertaking something as vast as 2,189 miles?
Yeah. I mean, it starts with, so first of all, like, when you enter a race, you pay $150, maybe a bit more, something around that. And then you start training and then you do the race and that's it, you know. But with this, it's like 20 to $30,000 US dollars. So the first thing is, right, okay, and then you've got to try and like get the product support. So it all starts with, can I get the product support? Can I raise the cash? And then you also taper in weave in, sorry, is the word I'm looking for, weave in your training and try not to get too stressed out by everyone just saying no, no, no all the time. Cause you got to you got to have thick skin and accept a lot of no's with product support requests and financial support requests before you get a yes. And that's normal. Otherwise it would be too easy. So then you do your training, try not to get too stressed. And then finally, when you get to the start of that 2,198-mile trail, even though that's kind of that's the tough challenge, it's a bit of a relief actually to just think, oh,
Mm.
all I got to do now is run every day, all day, which is just less stressful than the other stuff.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You can't even compare it to a race. It's an undertaking. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, it is like I don't know. I just with ultra marathon running, I started in 2009. Started marathon running in 2000. Did my first ultra in 2009, and I just remember the goal with marathon was to get faster, but the goal with ultra was to get longer. You know, and I guess I've finally got over 2,000 miles. I mean, I started at 50K, 50 miles. I skipped the 100K. I don't know. I just went straight to 100 miles. Then I did a 200 miler in Italy, Tour of Giants or Tour de Gion, which was pretty cool. Finished that. And then the next year after that, I helped Carol Sabe on the Appalachian Trail. And then I was like doing 35 miles a day with him for just over 2 weeks. And then I went back the next year and I had my own attempt. So yeah, it's been a journey of distance for sure.
Mm. When was the first time you heard about the Appalachian?
Yeah. There's a podcast which was run by an English fellow called Ian Corliss.
Yeah.
Tour Culture. In fact, do you guys know that Ian Sharman also started that off with him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was really cool. So I listened to that podcast, and I think Carl Meltzer Carl Meltzer, Speed Goat Carl, is a co-host, or was when it used to run. And Carl would come on and he would talk about Scott's Scott's attempt on the Appalachian Trail in 2015. So that's the kind of first time I heard about the trail about 8 years ago. Yeah.
And because that was he was pacing Scott, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then went and had his own crack. Yeah.
Yeah. He was pacing it. I mean, Carl Meltzer actually had 2 tries on the Appalachian Trail before Scott even had his first attempt. So Carl Meltzer's a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've now done it 4 times, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had 4 attempts. I mean, if you actually count the fact that I started once this year already and called it quits on day 2 because the weather was so bad, and then thought, okay, it's all over, and then went back to the trail after we waited for the weather to pass. I mean, really, but you can call it my 4th attempt, I think, Yeah.
What just before we get into diving deep on this particular expedition, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
What was it like pacing Corral Sabe? How did that come about? And tell us about running with that legend.
Yeah. Desert, Morocco, Sahara Desert, 2016. I'm running Marathon des Sables. Most of the guys who run that are probably kind of corporate finance guys in the city going through a midlife crisis. I'm there because I'm a runner, a passionate runner, and most of my tent mates are just all having something in common that I don't have, which is, I guess, money. These all rich guys, and I'm just in the tent thinking, I don't know. I don't want to talk about spreadsheets. I'm going to take a walk. So I took a walk and ended up in the like a kind of a reception area where you can sit and hang out. There's no one there really, just people passing through. And Carol Sabe sitting there. Yeah, it's nice. It's pretty sweet, really, to think about that and think back to it. And I was sitting there and he was sitting there and we just started chatting. And he said he wanted some fresh air from his tent mates, and it was the same with me. And he started talking about the Pacific Crest Trail and how he was going to hike it. Never told me he was going to go for the speed record. And then, yeah, I really just got along well with him. Just a nice, quiet, peaceful individual. And then I saw on Strava that he set the Pacific Crest Trail record on a Strava post. So I said, hey, congrats. And then he invited me to come and pace him on the Appalachian Trail. And that's how I got to know him at Marathon des Sables.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, investment bankers, for that, forcing 2 passionate runners out of their tent into the darkness. One of the things that we all have a first introduction to the Appalachian Trail. Mine was, I don't know if you've ever read the Bill Bryson novel, A Walk in the Woods.
Yeah. But hold on, Bryce novel?
Bill Bryson.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And he ends up sort of essentially on a whim walking the Appalachian Trail with his friend. What was it like? I mean, it's not just something for people to set a fastest known time on. There's a real culture around it. There's law, and there's a society almost built around this trail. What was it like immersing yourself in such a richness?
So let's go back to 21, and his friend's name is Katz, by the way.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he's a real character, man, in that book. Anyone who hasn't read it, go and give it a go. I like that. It's full of factual stuff about trees catching diseases and, very cool. So, yeah, the community, typically, I guess you could call them the through hiking community. And a through hiker is someone who does the entire 2,000 miles in 1 year, right? So in 21, I had my second attempt at the Appalachian Trail, and the 2 first attempts in 19 and 21 finished at Hot Springs. So that's 250 miles or so. So that's just 5 days worth of running 50 miles a day. And I was really disappointed, but we had the hire vehicle. We were over in America, and I really wasn't ready to just fly back to the UK. So in fact, I think that year I wanted to be a through hiker more than a trail runner, because I had this big long beard, my hair was down to my shoulders, and I was watching Darwin on the Trail, YouTube videos about what gear to take on your hike. And I think deep down, I just wanted to hike the trail that year. So anyway, I came off the trail in Hot Springs, and I got um, my mum, who's also my crew gun section, to drive me up to Hanover, which is about 500 miles from the finish. Drop me off with, I even had a through hiking backpack with me. So I don't know if that was a coincidence or just some subconscious kind of stuff, you know. And I put all my stuff in a backpack, my tent, sleeping bag, and I actually joined, and it coincided with the through hike. A lot of the through hikers were in Hanover and about to finish the trail, the last 500 miles, and I joined the guys. I mean, I started off by myself, hiking alone, and eventually you talk to someone, you set your tent up near some other people, and you end up. I joined a crew called the Dirty Bubble, and yeah, like these guys were awesome. And I just hiked with these true hikers who had hiked the previous 1,700 miles, and you know, and they embraced me, and I became a section hiker. Like if you don't do the full, you're a sec, but it was a big section. And yeah, I mean, it's a great community, and there's all sorts of interesting words like trail family becomes tramily. Um, you know, yeah, I can't think of any other stuff. It'll come to me, but yeah, it's an amazing community. It's not just about trail running for me.
Yeah. Is there any um, standoffishness between the through hikers and the trail runners?
Well, yeah, because I guess they're all looking at me in a strange kind of way when I said, "Oh, I got injured down in Hot Springs, and now I'm back on the trail hiking." So there was lots of curiosity questions. A guy called Road Soda, with, I think, I actually it's quite interesting because a lot of these through hikers by now are really in great shape. They're super lightweight with their packs, and actually the through hikers are jogging the flat sections, jogging the downhills, you know, with their packs because they're pretty light. And you know, I just said to the guys, it's not much different from what you guys are doing. Obviously, we're hiking the really steep parts, we're climbing the rocks, and then we're jogging everything else. So, but we do it obviously for 50 miles a day. So I tried to build this bridge between what a FKT setter and a through hiker is. And I think the fact that I was camping with these guys every night with like tons of scraggly long hair and a big scraggly beard, I think these guys like just took me in and was like, oh, this guy's actually just one of us. You know?
Yeah. What about the community beyond those who are actually walking or hiking or running? You know, do you encounter others? You know, the people who live in that area. I know it's a remote part of the world, but you know, are there encounters with those who live there?
Yeah, so I guess so the trail, it used to have immigrants living, like those mountains, the Appalachian Mountains used to have people living all along
Yeah.
where the trail is. In fact, you run past old buildings, really old style, you know, stone buildings and stuff and stone walls. And I think what happened when the Appalachian Trail was built, a lot of these people, the land was bought around the Appalachian Trail to protect it, and these people had to move out. So actually, no one really lives on the Appalachian Trail. You do run across some farmland, I guess, and then you run through some towns. But as for the trail itself, it's protected by the ATC, Appalachian Trail Conservancy.
Right.
So, but yeah, there are hostel owners as well. But yeah, as for like people living on the trail, it's kind of, maybe they're used to, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of had this romantic image of I don't know, romantic's the right word, but the people of the Appalachian Mountains, and that sort of storied history of their own.
Well, yeah,
being somehow connected to it, but
no, and I think they're doing. There's a whole load of Appalachian music around it, folk music. So I actually delved into this, and I started because I wanted to really study the Appalachian Trail before I get there. So I listen to the music, and there's these Irish immigrants who are coming over, living in the Appalachian Mountains, and singing and dancing and writing poetry. So there's it is so that was once, but unfortunately no longer, which is quite sad, really.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. So this year, and what turned out to be the successful crack at it, but as you've mentioned, the weather was not playing ball to start with. It
Yeah.
sounded atrocious.
Yeah. I mean, I think when Scott Jurek did it, there was the most rainfall ever that year. And I think that's been surpassed. All records have been broken from this year now. And it was, I mean, it was devastating. I was, so, you guys are ultra runners, I guess. Do you run ultras? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't do my research.
We're very average.
Oh man, anyone who finishes a marathon and beyond is not average. Superhuman. So yeah, like this year the weather was enough to take hikers. Like hikers were getting off trail. A lot of hikers didn't finish their hike this year. I mean, the trail actually there was diversions in place. So what I was going to say, and asking if you guys were ultra runners, is so when you're training for an ultra, most people have a training plan, and they have a base building phase. They have like a peaking phase and then a taper phase. So I got to the end of my taper phase, and then I had another 6 weeks of waiting to start.
Mhm.
So my fitness was, yeah, by the time I got to Katahdin, actually, because I'd already run, I started in the north and came down south. By the time I started, I'd already run from the top of Katahdin down to Able Bridge about 3 other times, in training, and one of them on that full start day. And when I started on the actual attempt, I felt the worst ever. I felt so bad. My hips were tight. I just felt terrible. My left adductor muscle wasn't feeling good. It was dark that morning as well, whereas the other mornings it was light. So yeah, it was, I mean, okay, these are really annoying things, but I mean, a hiker died on trail, so I mean, whatever annoying things happened to me, that's just part of attempting a through hike. I mean, the fastest known time attempt. But yeah, a lot of condolences go out to the hiker who lost his life, and that, obviously his family. That's a lot worse than what I had to go through.
Mm. And that's the thing with such an endeavor or expedition like the Appalachian Trail. There's real, the potential for danger is there. It's an inhospitable environment in many parts. You think about people always show the photos of the rocks that you're clambering over and anything like that. Was there any moments for you during that time that you had any sort of close calls, or
There was, yeah, 2 times in particular. A guy called Matt Hart, who is a writer, was with me, along with actually some other runners in the White Mountains. And we were going up. We were all under tree line, and the weather wasn't great. None of us had our rain jackets on, or windproofs or anything. And as soon as we got above tree line, I mean, as soon as we approached above tree line, I actually was first in the little crew of people, and I stopped to put my jacket on because I could see it was whipping, of wind. And we all had stopped to put our jackets on, and then carried on over these wet, slick kind of rocks. And I saw a flash of lightning, and I counted to 9 seconds, and then we heard the thunder. And then I think that the next one was a little bit closer, and then then there was this kind of weird kind of like it was static, like a vibrating sound, like a buzzing sound. And I just turned around to Matt with like wide eyes, and I said, "What is that?" And he just said static, because he's from Colorado, I think. So I turned around, and I end up running a 5K PB over these wet rocks, to get to, I think it was Madison Hut. And Matt just said he tried to follow me and ended up slipping and falling a bit, and I was gone, and so that was one occasion. I didn't want to get struck by lightning. The other occasion was actually the next day. It was part of the same storm. I stopped at Madison Hut, and I had to get up and over Washington, which is a notoriously dangerous place for through hikers, whatever you are, day hikers, people. And the wind they have a wind forecast on the board. So I think I'm just going to shut the curtain a little bit, like getting the sun right in my eyes. Give me a second.
Sure.
So yeah, they have a weather board, and it said 96 miles an hour winds. And I really just wasn't sure whether it was a good idea to get outside. So I did. I dressed up in all my clothes, and I hiked mostly up over Washington. And when I got to Washington, there's a weather station there, and it was like 96 mile an hour winds. So I just questioned whether to go on. I waited there about 2 hours, and I thought, I'm not sure if this is going to be safe. So yeah, you're right. There were two particular occasions where I genuinely questioned whether actually I was in a dangerous situation.
It's funny with wind, isn't it? Eugene and I a couple of years ago were in a race in Wellington. It's called the Wellington Urban Ultra. It's not too much urban about it, but the wind, I mean, that would have been well up over 100 kilometers. I'm not sure if it got up to 100 miles, but I remember thinking, oh dear, we're
running downhill, being pushed back up.
Yeah.
It was
the hood of the jacket does nothing, whipping like a sail. It's so interesting, isn't it? People talk about lightning, water, but it's wind that can be just so very, very concerning.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was actually, obviously, when you're in the mountains, you've got to climb down boulders and stuff and step down 4-foot sections from one rock to the floor. I was able to lean forward into the wind, and the wind would hold me down, like support me as I was coming down. I mean, it was that crazy. And then at one point when I was going up, because I changed the trail continuously changes directions. One time you're heading southwest, another time you're heading southeast. And when I was going up to Washington, the wind was behind me, and I could almost lean back and just walk up over these rocks. So yeah, wind's pretty. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit scary, Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Sorry to keep drawing these, an ultra marathon, even something like Tour de Jeanne. You've got life bases, you've got crew, you've got stuff like that, and it's 200 miles, and that's a long way, and it's very difficult terrain. But 10 times that, how did you? What were your considerations regarding like gear and nutrition and stuff like that? How did you prepare your physical, I guess, your body and what you had on for such a task?
Yeah, I guess I start obviously in the planning, when you're chasing after the product support and the funding. First of all, you got to make sure that you're wearing the right equipment. So can I shout out a couple of people?
Of course.
Yeah, shout out to Hoka for the past like 3 years for supporting me, with my shoes. And they were my main kind of t-shirt, shoes, and all that kind of stuff. So I had to get familiar with all my gear. I didn't want anything chafing. I ripped the insides of the shorts out. Well, I didn't rip them out. I cut them out. And I wore like underwear because they worked really well. And I never chafed, never had any chafing. And then when it was raining, I wore exoskin, which are like a bicycle short. And then that stops any wet material. So again, I didn't chafe. So I had everything down, no chafing, comfortable with my kit. And then there's nutrition. So I started in the months fortifying myself months before with my favorite supplements. Got to shout out currants as well. Actually, currants are from New Zealand. So yeah, cool thing about these guys is actually it's not really it's just dried currants, So I was already a fan of every morning I have my smoothie, and it's not just got currants, it's got currants and berries and stuff like that. And these guys have formulated this kind of pill, where a handful of currants is in one of these pills. So it just makes it a lot easier. And I actually not only did that like in the months leading up, but all the way during the attempt. I had 2 in the morning, afternoon, and 2 in the evening. So there's fortifying yourself, with the nutrition and the supplements and stuff. And then I guess there's getting out there, So what the like calories every day? What is that, like 6,000 minimum calories a day? So you've got to have food, because if you don't have food, you can't move forwards. You got to have the energy, and you got to be able to digest that. So my watch bleeped every 30 minutes, and I ate 150 calories every 30 minutes, which I think was impressive, to do that for 45 days. I thought when I came off trail, I would be, like needing to eat every 30 minutes, but it wasn't the case. I was kind of sick of eating by that point. So yeah, there's a lot.
What would you
There's
take
a
on
lot.
board?
Oh, so everything, in the morning, I would have a smoothie. I still stuck with as well as the current supplements, I still had my berry smoothie. In fact, it was wild blueberries from Maine. So I was having about a pound a day of these
So
things.
you were like 90% berry by the end of the trail.
I
Veruca
guess I'm
Salt over
like,
here.
one of those things that like you used to have the gummy berry juice, right? And then they bounce.
Yeah, gummy bears. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch that when I was a kid. So maybe subconsciously, like, I'm a gummy bear, I just bounce down the trail. No, but I really believe that the more of this stuff you put inside, the better you're going to feel. And yeah, I mean, it got me the southbound record. So I ate
Absolutely.
McDonald's, I ate ice cream, I ate bacon and egg sandwiches, I ate blueberry, berry smoothies. I ate trail mix. I mean, kind of everything you can imagine that you can carry as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you with that everything? I mean, and I guess that's the thing. At this point, your body's a furnace, right? You probably not keeping up with your as hard as you try. You're going to burn. There's always more calories to burn. Would you, with that variety, was there a routine, or it's just you sort of kept it really easy and whatever you felt like?
No, I started off as a routine. So I was waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I was usually on the trail by 4:20. And within that time, I'd had a black coffee and one of these berry smoothies and all my supplements again. And then I would eat a few snacks, like every 30 minutes, just trail snacks. And then when I saw the crew for the first time that day, it was typically after 3 or 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on the next road crossing. And then I would have my first kind of hot food, which would be a bacon and egg sandwich, which was good. And I'd have a monster drink as well. I got into those monster drinks. Yeah, they give you a boost. And then I went back to the every 30-minute snacks again and just ate a 30-minute snack all day until the nighttime. And I had a camping meal and then some ice cream and went to bed. That was it. Yeah.
Eat, sleep, run. You can't do this alone, and you mentioned your mum, but tell us about that whole crew logistics and how all that worked for you, because it's a mission in and of itself.
Yeah, it was a 2-person team. There was a 3-person team, including me. I'm the runner. Then there was 2 crew. One, my mum, who, like I said, she's her trail name is Gun Section. And there's a funny story how she got that. We were in Walmart back in 2019, and every time I phoned her up, I'd ask her, because they're big stores. Have you been over in one of those Walmarts? Yeah.
I haven't.
Massive.
Okay, they're huge. Like you can't, so I'd phone her up and I'd say, "Hey mom, like I can't see you. I mean, where are you?" And I'm in the gun section, So I think after 3 times she said that, I was like, okay, let's just say that your trail name's Gun Section. It might stick, it might not. And it did. And then the next crew member is a 73-year-old man called Iceman, David Martin, Iceman. And he got his trail name from giving ice to a young 7-year-old, or I think she sprained her ankle or something like that. And he's a trail angel and a someone who goes out to the trail every year. He section hikes the entire Appalachian Trail. So I had like two amazing people with me to help me, achieve my goal. And it's not easy. I mean, these guys have to be up in the morning the same time as me and go to bed after I go to bed on the nighttime. So if I'm only getting 5 hours sleep, those guys are getting less, you know. Then they have to navigate Forest Service roads, they may get to a road and a tree's fallen across the road. What do they do? I mean, there's all these scenarios that happen behind what I'm doing, running and stuff. And then there's, I guess, support. They can't be negative and they can't be, fed up and just like come in and I don't know. Imagine staring at their phones and like, hey guys, give me some attention here. So yeah, they've got to be strong, mentally strong and emotionally strong to help one of these things take place. So I reckon, to run a world record attempt on the AT, you've got to be a world-class runner, but you've got to have a world-class crew as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you went for experience over youth. I love it.
I mean, I'll be honest, man. I went with what I had. Like if you look at most people, Scott Jurek had his wife, Carl Meltzer's dad, and Belle, his friend Bells went along. Jen Farr Davis had her husband. I mean, for someone to dedicate this amount of time for each day for these amount of weeks and months. I mean, my mom was like, yeah, Kristian, I'm in, I'll do it. And then Iceman contacted me. So I was lucky with that. So yeah, it's just fortunate that someone wanted to be part of it, really. I think.
Yeah. And your mum was doing your socials as well, is that right?
Yeah, she was doing the social media. So she was like and she enjoys that as well. She was writing a bit and interacting with people via the comments and meeting some of the people coming out on the trail and stuff.
Yeah. What you've got a strange role, haven't you, in that dynamic, in that you probably can't afford to worry about what they're doing or be concerned about what they're up to. You've got a job to do, so that must make a strange. It's an odd relationship, isn't it? As a human being, obviously you're worried about them. When you do hear that things are happening, but you've just got to get on with it.
Yeah, so I evolved over the years. 2019. In fact, my mum has crewed me from 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So 5 years of crewing. And in 20, I couldn't get over to America, and we set the record on Britain's longest national trail. So I have experience with her. But back to 2019, like we were doing a lot of arguing with each other, I was getting triggered by her. I guess she was getting triggered by me. And the name Gun Section suits her pretty well. She's very, fiery. She's fiery, and so that's why her and Iceman worked really well, because he's a very laid back, peaceful person. So the fire of, my mom and then the relaxed approach of Iceman really works. But yeah, I guess the main worry is, are they going to be able to get to the next road crossing to meet me? And as the years went by, they've just proved that they could. So I tried not to worry about these guys. And in fact, I think as time went by, I learned not to worry about these guys, I'd say. Oh, you guys are getting dark over there. I was waiting for a sunrise, Matt, but actually it's sunset for you.
It's dark outside, and it's what a beautiful day it's been. But did speaking of weather, I mean, it started terribly. You said you're there, it's dark, the weather's so bad that someone unfortunately lost their life on the trail. Did it get better throughout?
Yeah, the rain stopped. So we left Vermont, and in fact, it affected all the way down to Massachusetts. But I remember once we got into like Virginia, there was actually a bit of a drought. All the river crossings where I could collect water, all the water sources were dried out. So it was kind of the opposite. So I went from running through mud for 16 hours a day, days upon ends, and water, and crossing rivers that should have been ankle deep, which were now chest deep in places, to not being able to get any water on the trail. So it went the opposite. But I mean, I enjoyed the sun, and if you had to choose between a dry water crossing or like just running through mud all day, I'll just carry a bit of extra water, give me that any day of the week. Yeah.
There's something so, I mean, being hot or being, in the sun is one thing, but there's something so encroaching about spending. I mean, I can't imagine spending multiple long days in mud, but even spending a long day running in mud is just so, it can become so problematic in terms of, even the friction on the soles of your feet or all that sort of stuff. Did you have any problems related to that?
Yeah, I did. So that's why I got off trail on, I forget what day it was now. I think it was day 7 with an overuse injury just above my right ankle. So I don't know if you guys or anyone out there has ever run on sand or on the beach. You'll find that the muscles around your lower legs actually ache because you haven't used them before. So when you're running through mud, it's the same thing. The ground doesn't stop when your foot hits it. It actually goes down a few more inches. So then your muscles are acting as stabilizers that they wouldn't normally need to do on firm ground. So what happened was, after about 3 days, by the time I got into Vermont, I just had a pain, which got so bad. I was on my hands and knees and I was crawling and I was crying. And I just got to the point where I made a decision to separate my mind and my body. And I just said to my body, listen, I'm sorry. I really apologize for trying to just push you through this. I'm going to give you a day in a motel and see what we've got tomorrow. And I'm excited and I have faith in you, So 16 miles in that day, I got off trail. I walked in to see the crew barely, I could barely even walk. And I just told them what had happened. And we got off trail, went to a motel, stayed there. Next day, got back on trail. And my pain in my calf, like above my ankle, went from like 10 out of 10 to 4 out of 10. And then eventually went down to 3 and then disappeared. So that worked.
So you made a deal with yourself. Wow.
Yeah, I did. I just, like I say, it's weird. Most people are like, okay, I am me, this is one thing, but what I did was I realized my mind was pushing my body, and these are two separate things. Yeah. So I just had to separate. Okay, Kristian, your mind wants this and your body wants this. So you need to listen to your body, because your mind is driving you to the point where you're on your hands and knees now crying.
Wow.
Yeah. So these kind of things happen on trail.
Yeah. Right? At that point, you're almost like a negotiator between your body and your mind.
Yeah.
It's like there's 3 different entities. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was cool. I mean, like, then I remember this hiker came, because I was going against all the northbounders. Sorry, I was going south, wasn't I? Yeah, all the northbounders were coming up, finishing their hikes. And this one guy came around the corner. He just looked at me, and my eyes must have been bloodshot red, my cheeks full of tears. And he just said, dude, are you okay? And I just said, I'm good, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I carried on. And by that point, I'd negotiated. I knew what I had to do, so I was good.
Yeah. Yeah. What other, I mean, that's an extreme version, but you must have to employ a ton of mental strategies and tools to be able to undertake something like this, especially 4 times, like you got to get out there and do it again. It's quite the mental gymnastic routine you must have to go through.
Yeah, shout out to Scott and Don at Trail Running Nation. I heard them use that phrase, mental gymnastics. Actually, I was
really?
interviewing on the podcast. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard that from those guys, but yeah, it's cool. Mental gymnastics burns energy as well.
Yeah.
So we had this whole conversation about the more mental gymnastics you're doing, the more tired you're going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as like the alarm went off at 4 a.m. in the morning, the mental game started. So I didn't allow myself as a millisecond to contemplate what I had to do, because if I would have lay there and listened to my alarm for 60 seconds or just turned it off or just lay there, the like the way you feel when you wake up, you're groggy, and actually an hour later or 20 minutes later, that grogginess has disappeared. So you can't lie there, because the way you feel at that very moment is temporary. So the first thing I did every single morning, my alarm would go off and I would sit up. My clothes would be in the roof tent. I was on a roof tent on the Toyota Tacoma, and I would just start getting dressed. And I would sometimes have to say out loud, the way I feel now is not the way I will feel in 1 hour. And I would just get dressed. So that, yeah, as soon as your day starts, as soon as you wake up, you start with a mental process of, how do I make this work? How can I get through this?
Amazing. You also had some incredible animal encounters, I understand.
Yeah.
You love a good animal encounter story.
So yeah, one of my favorites, I'll tell you. Like there was this like I said, a lot of hikers are coming north, and often they've got dogs and stuff. A lot of hikers, not a lot, but some hikers take their dogs. And this dog is coming down the trail, a big open slab area in Maine. So I'm a couple of days in, and I'm a bit curious as to why the dog doesn't have an owner, a hiker. Sorry. I was listening to, I forget which podcast or something. Was it a podcast? I forget. I was listening to something. I think I was listening to Dirt Church Radio. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there you go.
Of course. And Matt was telling this cool story. Yeah, just kidding. Now, so and then the dog kind of turned around and went 180 back. And I thought, that's a really nervous dog, because my peripheral vision is getting this. I'm not really staring at the dog. I'm just taking it in half-heartedly. And then I look at the back of its neck and its ears and its tail, and I'm like, holy crap, that's a bobcat, man. That's a bobcat. And it growled at me, and then it went into the bushes. And I was stoked, because you don't see bobcats. You just don't see them. They're like mythical, quiet, private animals who just don't come out. I think they're even nocturnal. And you ask 2,500 hikers, and maybe I think you'll get like one or two who saw bobcats. So I was one of those guys. I was really lucky. Tons of bears. It's one bobcat.
It's just one bobcat. I guess it's a thing, isn't it? Like, you don't see them, they see you.
Yeah. I was aware when I was going through the trail that I was probably being watched, by stuff I couldn't see.
You'd be glad of that. It's something that we ask a lot, especially people who have had, a lot of running experience in the northern hemisphere, because down here, I mean, we've got birds, and that's it.
Yeah.
Our native species, we've got pigs and goats and stuff, but nothing large and carnivorous in the woods, which is pretty cool, actually. It does make for going overseas. It ramps up the threat level if you're going overseas, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, I can empathize with you there, Matt, because like back in England, we got birds and squirrels, and squirrels are just not really super impressive either, But the first time I was on the trail with Carol Sabe, my first bear encounter, we were running, and you don't like necessarily see them as much as you hear them, because when they stand on branches, the branches break. So we both heard some branches break to our right, and we look over, and there's a bear. And it hadn't seen us at that point because it was still walking. And just to see something 2 times the weight and size of myself is like exciting and scary at the same time, And then after it's gone, you kind of want to see another one. You're like, wow, that was just... It kind of makes it sends feelings, it releases feelings inside of you that are real human feelings: fear, excitement, or awe. And you don't necessarily feel these things when you're walking down the street. So to have these amazing human emotions come out, like these ancient human emotions, or prehistoric, or Neanderthal, or whatever, like these amazing human feelings. Yeah, it's part of being out in nature. I guess that's why some people love being out there. It's why I love being out there as well.
And how do you deal with a errant bear?
Errant? What's
Well,
errant?
it's there. It's wandering around. You're wandering around. It's a chance encounter. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think, I got to tell a story. It's a true story as well, man. Like, yeah, if Carol listens to this, I hope his memory's as good as mine. But like, I think the second or third bear we saw, it was to our left this time. And I just remember because I was running behind Carol and the bear was slightly to our left. It meant that I was in between the bear and Carol. And Carol accentuated that by taking a side step to get further behind me. So I thought to myself, dude, you're hiding behind me. There's this bear in front of me. I didn't say it out loud, but yeah, I guess. And then it just left us, left us alone. It wasn't really close either, but yeah, Carol actually stood behind me, so that's how he reacted.
Did you check the terms and conditions of your pacer roll?
Pacer agreement,
yeah. What?
Yeah. I hope he doesn't not remember that and think I'm just being an ass, but that's what happened.
And I guess it's that thing is then that comes down to the very human, the human conundrum that has probably lasted millennia. Is you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than Carol. Like
you got to be faster than the slowest person in the group or something. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. The wildlife out there is amazing, and the snakes. I saw tons of snakes, not cobras, rattlesnakes. Sorry, like copperhead snake. I was filming it. I was like getting right up there. I didn't, and then I showed someone. They're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're just filming like one of the most dangerous snakes on the trail that can kill you. It's a copperhead, dude." So. But I did have my phone on Zoom. I wasn't that close,
0.5. How do you make sense? And I guess how do you make sense of such an achievement? What's been the processing afterwards like?
Like I had Eliot Kipchoge, when everyone I think had to give a talk in the this documentary I was watching on runners, or they have to give some advice that day. I think Eliot Kipchoge's was, let's not turn around and look back over our shoulders and stagnate in our success. I don't think he used those words, but in his English, let's not just like marinate in our success. Let's always look forwards. So to be honest, actually, most of my time I'm always looking forwards because I'm always, I've got the southbound record, but I went out there to get the overall or the Appalachian Trail record, the fastest time, and I didn't get it. So already I'm still looking forwards, So I don't think I've got to the stage in my life yet where I can fully absorb what I've done. But to me, I'm normalizing it as part of the mental strategy that in order to be able to do this, it has to be normal to me. Challenging, yes, but it has to be normal. So I don't view it the same way as everyone else would view it because I wouldn't be able to do it. So I've kind of just come to terms with, that's what I'm doing. And I keep my head looking forwards. And the only time I look back is to see what mistakes I made and I can change that for next time.
What is, that's the dreaded question, isn't it? With any runner, with any kind of runner, especially someone who's done something which is of significance. Not that any runner, like you said, anyone lacing up their shoes is doing something of significance. What is the next thing that you have on the cards?
So the Appalachian Trail. I mean, like I'm 46 years old. I'm the second fastest in the world last year, overall. This year I come back, I set the southbound record. I'm in my prime. Next year I go back, I go for the record. But what I do is I go northbound next year and I'll be the first person. There's only 2 people in the world right now who could possibly attempt what I'm going to attempt. I'm one of them, and the other one is Carol Sabet. So I'm going to attempt to hold the record in both directions on the Appalachian Trail. Carol has the northbound, so if he went south next year, he could attempt what I'm going to call the double AT record.
Mm.
So I'm going to go, I went southbound this year. I've got the record. So I'm going to go north and attempt to hold the northbound, which is the overall record. And then I also have the southbound. And I'll be the only person to attempt that in history. And if I pull it off, I'll be the only person to have done that. So I'm going back to the AT. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So right now I'm doing the normal thing I do, which is, chase after funding and see if my product support is still there. And yeah.
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? For potential sponsors or people who are productive, I'm sure that companies like Hoka get inundated with, hey, you should give me money and shoes and what have you. But you've really now, you're reaching for that brass ring, and it's a legitimate and very real possibility, bearing, nothing untoward happening.
What gives me the right to think that I can go and set the record on the Appalachian Trail? Well, I'm the second fastest in the world, and I have the southbound record as well. So, I'm pretty legit 2 years in a row, and I've failed a bunch. I didn't just get it lucky first shot. I came back year after year after year, and yeah. So I'm legitimate, guys. A lot of people say stuff, they're saying they're going to do it. I'm one of these people who does it.
Yeah.
We got that impression early into our conversation. Is old gun section coming with you?
Gun section is coming with me. She's in it for the long haul. Unfortunately, Iceman said he won't be able to commit to next year. So yeah, we're exploring some avenues because there's no way I could expect just her to be out there by herself. You actually need a crew to do these things. It's a supported record attempt.
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't happen. So yeah, at the moment looking at some other potential people who might be able to fit that role. Actually, no one's ever going to fit the role of Iceman, but someone else who can, bring themselves and their personality and their strength to the
and their trail
expedition.
name.
Yeah. And a trail name. Yeah, of course.
On that, now this is the thing that, and people might not know this with the Appalachian Trail. You spoke about Road Soda. There's the best name ever, Gun Section, and, Iceman, and there's String Bean, Anish, all these famous names. Would you mind sharing, do you have a trail name?
So when I was with the thru hikers in 21, those guys called me Down Over. That's because I lived in England, but I used to live in Australia. So instead of Down Under, it's Down Over. So everyone who hiked the trail in 21 calls me Down Over, and they still do. Hey, what's up, Down Over? When I hear that Down Over, it's just I feel like I'm back on the trail. But actually, a guy called Scott Grierson, who raced David Horton in 1991 and became the fastest hiker ever, Scott Grierson came up with the trail name Captain. He made a post on the Facebook 2022 through hiking page about there's this guy, and he put a photo up of me. His name's Kristian Morgan, and he's going to go for the record attempt. So then everything through hiker I ran past last year was, hey, it came out in 3 versions. Hey, Kristian Morgan, or hey, Captain, or Captain, oh my Captain, I think, which was from Dead Poets Society. So there was a few variations, but I guess just Captain, was the thing there. Which is a bit goofy, really. I mean, it's not that cool.
It's pretty cool getting someone else. If you gave yourself the name Captain, it would be like, that would be unreal. But someone legit gave you that name, and that's pretty excellent. When does when's the next window and sort of you'll be trained and what does the build up look like?
Yeah, so it should have been this year, June 1st, but yeah, finance and then the weather delayed us. So June 1st will give me the 41 days with the most amount of daylight hours. So the earliest sunrises, the latest sunsets. So based off summer solstice, which would be around the 20th of June, That's the perfect window for me. And then preparation will be to still recover. I'm still recovering. I got off the trail 8 weeks and 2 days ago or something like that. So I'm still recovering right now. So I'm doing lots of swimming in the ocean. I'm doing lots of cycling on the bike. In fact, I did park run the other day. So I was running some 6-minute miles, which my body was not ready for that. Yeah, it was kind of aching a bit after. So yeah, just a lot of preparation and recovery. Sorry. And then I'm going to go to Thailand. I'll arrive on my birthday, the 3rd of January, and just go back to my old training ground in the north, the mountains of North Thailand. There's a trail there called the Caffeine Trail because it goes up to a coffee plantation. And I just go up, I run up the trail or hike up the trail, get to the top, drink a coffee, go to the big mountain, run down, just do this, repeat, and then spend a month in America. Got a friend called Veronica Leeds who lives in New Hampshire, and shout out to her and her family, and probably spend some time on the trail, and get acclimatized, and then start June 1st.
That sounds amazing. Look, Kristian, it's been such a joy to, we brought this together quickly. You're on the other side of the world that like you're starting your day. I'd like to thank you for how generous you've been and just insightful. On Dirt Church Radio, we ask every single person who comes on the same question to wrap things up, and that's, Kristian Morgan, what's been your greatest run ever?
Yeah. Wow. Give us a minute to think. My greatest run. Obviously you can run a long way and that's your longest run. You can run fast marathon, that's your fastest run. Or you can be somewhere in your mind and your heart as you're running. And that may be what you could call your greatest run. And I've happened to be in a really nice place many times in life, in my mind and my heart. And those have been my greatest runs. One in particular one, I guess, which was more focused in my mind, I guess I could speak to. I was doing parkrun. Do you guys know what parkrun is?
Yep.
We know
Yep.
parkrun.
Big fan of parkrun.
Okay.
Parkrun.
Yeah.
It's great. It gets people out there.
Yeah.
It's a
Absolutely.
community, and I
Love
think
the
it's
whole idea of
boundless.
it.
Love
Yeah.
parkrun. And I was doing a park run. I wanted 4 weeks prior, I do it every Saturday when I'm in the UK. Like I wanted to get a personal best. And that for me is like, I wanted to go under 17 minutes, And so the weeks leading up to it, I'd set a pace and I knew what split I had to run the first mile in and the second mile. And I was going 100% of my effort. And it was always a struggle. And then I got to the start line and made a decision. I actually decided I would run 90% of my max rather than 100. Forget about my watch, didn't look at the time, and just run with my mind at 90%. And I did the 5K, and I was it was the fastest I'd run in the past 4 weeks. I didn't get the PB, but it was the fastest I'd run. And I didn't have that really terrible engulfing sensation of, I can't handle this, because I still had 10% left. Yeah, I use this with my coaching clients, don't give it 100%. And I still had 10% left. And I got to the finish line and I looked at my splits and I think they were exactly the same or within 1 second of each other, for the laps. Wow. And I felt it easier than I'd run last week, even though I'd run slower last week. So yeah, anyway, the greatest runs for me, that was an example, ones where I'm at peace in my mind and my heart. And that's my greatest runs.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just being in that zone, right?
Yeah.
People talk about it, and as runners, we often overshoot it, don't we? And overthink it and, stress out when it's just, like you say, just back off, let it happen.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks,
Hey,
guys.
congratulations. And thank you so much for making the time for us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you have a crack at that overall record next year.
Yeah, please do follow along. If anyone does want to follow it, just go to my Instagram page and have a look at, my crazy dances that I was doing this year. I had to dance to keep my sanity.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, you guys can share my Instagram. That'd be
will
cool.
do.